This video is sponsored by Ting Mobile. A huge part of my YouTube career has been shaped by phones. Phones with big screens and small screens, keyboards, crazy cameras. But for most people, none of this really matters. Every device is immediately put in two groups. It's iOS or it's Android. That's all that mattered. You had to use one or the other. But after 13 years of this silly feud, it's time to put it to rest. I'm Jon Rettinger, and I carry both iOS and Android, and I'm proud of it. Here's why. Hey guys, what's going on? Jon here. I've got another unboxing for you. This time it's the new wired Apple keyboard. When I started making videos now 14 years ago, there wasn't an iOS or an Android to fight. There were other tech rivalries and they were equally as heated, but smartphones weren't anything that people cared that much about. Now, a really big point to make is smartphones clearly existed before the iPhone in 2007. You had RIM, you had Nokia, you had Microsoft and other manufacturers putting out their own versions of smartphones. By the mid-2000s, all those devices were business first. Any sort of fun or entertainment was a very secondary feature to what those devices could do. And it's not to say that any of those devices were bad. In fact, some of them were really good. But in 2007 at Macworld, it's when things changed.
This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone.
And I know I get a lot of heat in the comments for playing that clip a lot. And I hear you, but there's a reason that that clip is important to me. So first, it helped launch my career, and that was obviously a giant thing, personally. But also it changed what smartphones were and changed the relationship that users and carriers had with these devices. When you think about your smartphone now and the killer features, chances are a lot of those features originated from that keynote. Multi-touch, on-screen capacitive keyboards. Those are all things that started from the iPhone and perhaps Android perfected, but all those features had their nexus and had their pixel-perfect introduction at that one keynote in 2007. Clearly, that first iPhone was not a perfect device. It couldn't record video, it had edge, it was plagued by a bunch of other issues. But what it did accomplish was it changed the relationship between carriers and consumers. Google followed a pretty similar path with Android to say that they shook up the industry. They embraced openness, they embraced customization, and they gave users a choice that never existed before. And since iOS and Android have evolved into their full-featured platforms they are right now, and form factors have evolved to just beyond phones, the debate about which one is better still goes on. You don't have to look any farther than the comment section of any iPhone review or any flagship Android review to see the passion that people have behind these OSs. But knowing the history of these phones, I'm done trying to have a voice in the argument of which one is better. And I've started to just embrace carrying both. And 6 months, my primary SIM is in an iPhone, and the other 6 months, my primary SIM is in an Android device. And it's been a perfect compromise of having both phones. And it's also given me some perspective to see that both are amazing and equally different in their own right. And consumers should be embracing the choice they have instead of fighting over which one is better. So if you're going to carry two phones, or even if you're just going to carry one, you are going to need a phone plan and a phone carrier. And Ting, I think, is one of the best ways to go. In fact, it's been so good and reliable, I switched my mother-in-law and my grandparents over to it. In the age of us working from home all the time, chances are you're probably on Wi-Fi and you're paying for gigs and gigs or unlimited data that you are not using. The folks at Ting have a solution for that. It's not a prepaid carrier. Again, you pay for what you're using, and it sometimes can be scary or intimidating to switch carriers. It's incredibly simple. We'll link to it down below and everywhere. If you go to jon.ting.com, sign up, you can check your device compatibility. Pretty much every phone is going to work. They'll send you a SIM card, put it in your phone, and you're essentially on your way and done. And now they've got plan flexibility as well to pick the best plan for you. For $10 a month, for example, you get unlimited talk and text, and you can pay $5 per gigabyte that you want to use. For $25, you get unlimited talks and texts, and then 5 gigabytes of data, and they've got a full 5G network already rolled out. If you want more data than that, there's a $45 unlimited plan that gives you unlimited everything. You have choice, and they've made it easy. And if you sign up at john.ting.com, they're gonna give you $25 of free credit. So depending on how you set it up, that might be good for almost 2 months. So for right now, the iPhone in my pocket any year is the biggest one available. I tried to convince myself that I like small phones and I just couldn't do it. The biggest phone is the one for me. So right now, I'm rolling with the iPhone 12 Pro Max at 6.7-inch screen. It's perfect. When I'm using the phone, I want the biggest experience possible for browsing the web or apps or watching video. And I also want the best camera experience on that phone, and that's just the 12 Pro Max. So the things that I generally gravitate towards for Apple, it's like most people, it's an ecosystem play. Not only for the software and the apps, but the hardware. AirPods, how easy it is to pair, AirDrop, being able to copy something from my iPhone and paste it on my Mac. And another big reason why I always have an iPhone in my pocket is I'm generally wearing an Apple Watch. And I spend a lot of time with Wear OS, with Samsung wearables. And while those are full-featured platforms that offer a lot in the space, nothing can hold a candle to what the Apple Watch does and how it works so tightly with Apple's own hardware. The ecosystem is so encompassing, it becomes so easy to use, and when you don't have it, you really tend to miss what it did. And on the Android side, last year it was the Galaxy Fold was always in my pocket. I couldn't get away from that phone. I loved it. Its perfect imperfections and everything that it stood for and what it was going to be for the industry. Now the Z Fold 2 5G is usually in my pocket, but now something like the Pixel 5 has kind of been a nice complement to the iPhone. You could find the perfect Android phone to suit your need. On Apple, your only decision is really, do you want the telephoto or do you want a giant phone? But on Android, you can pick the phone that has those camera sensors, the software features that you want. You've got that choice. And when I combine the ease of use, and sometimes I just want to forget about my phone and just simply use it, of iOS, versus being able to tailor the experience for what's best for me of Android, when you take those two approaches and put them together, it's just been awesome. And I've been doing this for a while, carrying 2 phones, and I'm not sure why I never sort of shared my thoughts and experiences with it, but using both side by side has made me really appreciate what both of them can do. So if any of this is sounding appealing to you of carrying 2 phones, if you're crazy enough to do it, you got big enough and deep enough pockets to try it, here are some tips that I found from carrying 2 phones for years now. First, keep everything in Google. If you're willing to use Android, obviously you trust Google to some extent. And by everything, I mean contacts, calendar, mail, and photos inside of Google's ecosystem. That's gonna make switching infinitely easier, and Google's integration with iOS is still really tight. One of the big roadblocks people tend to have when debating switching is iMessage, and I think rightfully so. There's no real answer from Google. RCS is good and fine, but not everybody has it, not every carrier supports it, not every device has it. It's not a consistent experience. And when I want to have a tightly integrated messaging experience, there's a lot of third-party options. People flock to Signal and WhatsApp. What's worked out really well for me and for all the people who work here is Telegram. Telegram has given me those sort of iMessage-esque experiences, so being able to have groups and have apps on desktop and mobile and tablet and web, it's just worked out perfectly for what we need. So now on whatever device I'm using, I've got Telegram on it, and I don't miss that iMessage integration so much because the people that I talk to are already on it. So for photos, I mentioned Google Photos. So I generally, on my iPhone, have both Photos apps. I've got the Apple Photos app and Google Photos app, and in the background, every picture I take on my iPhone is syncing over to Google Photos as well. And if you can get over the messaging and photos and contact stuff, generally the app experience is close enough to similar that it's not really gonna matter to you. And I think after seeing the evolution of these platforms over the years, I can appreciate where they are, how they've gotten so good and so full-featured, whereas they started, it was such a neutered experience, for lack of a better term. So seeing the growth can give you appreciation for what they've become. And if you can't see the history or know the history of a platform, perhaps you're more apt to tear it down because of its deficiencies or what it doesn't have. But the next time you decide to engage in this war, be appreciative at least that you have these operating systems, these ecosystems that work so well and do the same things so differently.